point, I want to grow big enough that I can take on anyone and everyone who has a vision and a goal, even if it's just general health or just like, I want to learn how to run a 5K, living with type 1 diabetes, or having a full-time job and kids. Because I have some people that fall into that camp too. And honestly, like watching people have like 3 kids and a full-time job try to fit in a 5K is almost as hard as like just living with type 1 trying to fit in a 5K. It's a different type of like reasons and stress and like things we have to consider in training. But
Hello, welcome back everyone to the People Run podcast. This is your host Fitz Mayi here. Thanks for listening in. Today I have Sophie, new guest here with you guys, who is a diabetic athlete, Olympic Trials Qualifier, certified coach who's helping many runners, like hopefully some of you listening out there. She's a biomechanical engineer. Whoa. She's doing it all, and putting her footprint into the running space, the community, and doing big things out there. She's also the founder of Embrace the Grind. Welcome, Sophie. How you doing today?
good, how are you? Thanks for the intro.
Yeah, of course. I feel like I could add a few more, but
Oh, you're good. I mean, every time I listen to it again, I'm like, dang, I am doing too much sometimes. And there's times where it just like all comes together and like the motivation takes a hit and like, okay, which one's my priority today? But truly, I don't know what I would do without all of it. So there's nothing, no single one of those I want to take off my plate. So yeah.
As they say now, I wanted to give you some of your flowers, even though that was part of the intro. You're doing great and amazing things, which is why I reached out as well. And let's get right into it. How did you fall into running and love running?
Yeah. Well, so this is always like a two-folded answer for me. I think growing up, I was always just like a multi-sport athlete, but I wouldn't say I ever focused just on running. So I grew up in Albuquerque and I'm like 10 years later back in Albuquerque, but Albuquerque is just kind of a mecca of just different sports. That said, I never just went for a run as a kid, but I was playing soccer, I was skiing, I was playing basketball, I was swimming, all the things that kind of like touch on running and endurance sport, right? So, long story short, the only strict running I did was track in high school and loved it, but I didn't go above the 800. So the 800 and 400 were kind of like my distances. And then my sophomore year, so I had kind of a pretty good freshman year for a freshman. I made it to state in the 800 and ended up getting second in like my third time running it. So that was awesome. But then come my sophomore year, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And so it completely changed the sports element for me. And the first year was tough. I mean, like you go through a lot of physical changes and we can dive into that if we want. But it was one of those things where I had to like look at sport in a new light, and at the end of the day it actually gave me an in to my fueling and to my glucose management. But now you have all these risks, right? Like you have to be in range for optimal performance, and just that alone, and like the limited technology back when I was in high school, it was really hard to run. So I focused on soccer, ended up playing soccer in college. I was a goalkeeper, so every time I tell people that, and now I'm doing marathons, they're like, you were a goalkeeper? I'm like, well, in college, like goalkeeping is actually a pretty physical sport. Like it's a lot of training. The training's intense. Like it's a lot of up downs. Like you're basically doing burpees straight for like 2 hours at practice.
Yeah.
It's not endurance, right? So like I think it was a different type of fitness, and really my college soccer career was great, and I absolutely loved playing soccer. I still play to this day, but there was something missing, and by my senior year, I wasn't a starter by any means. Like I had started my sophomore year, and I was always on the traveling team, so we started traveling and had a bunch of games in the East Coast because we were in the Big East Conference. And my assistant coach, he was a big runner, and so we'd have like an hour to go like explore the new cities, and I just started asking him if I could join him on his runs. And so it was like my senior year of college that I started just running for an hour on those trips and seeing new places, and started to kind of see how that helped manage my diabetes. The like slower endurance effort, it's kind of like a form of medicine. So that was like a really cool, like, oh, I can do this with diabetes. And then when I was done playing college soccer, I'd always loved the weight room and speed and strength conditioning, so that was always part of me. I basically like walked up to our university president and he had a run with the president run club, and I was like, I want to run. And so ever since then, like while I was writing my thesis, running was literally what got me out the door, and so that's kind of how I fell into it. And that would have been like around 2016 timeframe. So.
Okay. Well, we'll touch into diabetes here in a bit, but what I do want to ask you is, well, first off, soccer. Funny you say that. You're like the fourth, maybe fifth person that I've heard started with soccer.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna have to start lacing up some cleats or something because there's got to be a
We
secret.
need a soccer team.
Yeah, there's got to be. Funny enough, some of them are Olympic qualifier too, or they just got
Yeah.
really good at running. But the start origin was soccer or football. For those of you, I'm Spanish, so we say football.
There you go.
In other countries as well too. But there's got to be some correlation with soccer. I'm done. I'm buying cleats right after this. What is it with soccer? Do you have any idea or thoughts on that? Like why a lot of people
No,
start?
I don't, but even like to this day, I think of all like my teammates and stuff. I'm like, not all of them run anymore or at all. And I'm like, you could have taken them post college soccer
Yeah.
and thrown them in a marathon, and you'd probably have like a whole nother like league of like super fast marathoners out there. I think it's honestly like the fight and like the endurance side of it, but also just like willing to like push through like hell basically.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that in soccer, and the mentality of just like you have to stay switched on for like the full 90 minutes. You can't fall asleep, and so I think that's kind of the game of running too, and so it translates. But
Yeah, that's a good point. You're going on there for 90 minutes, back and forth, especially if
yeah,
it's a really good match. The
yeah.
cardio's got to be insane. So you probably have some fast twitch translating over. Um, Damn, I missed my calling. I should have played soccer. um, Joking aside, right? You mentioned you started then running on some of these trips for an hour. What was those early like first runs like? By then, I'm assuming you were maybe, and correct me if I'm wrong, diagnosed already with diabetes. You said it helped. What were those first few runs like? And like you mentioned, there's no media at the time probably or much science data to help you out.
Yeah, so and like again, they were an hour. I don't even think we would run for an hour because I vividly remember. Well, so like soccer was a little more manageable because I could put like my glucose meter and snacks and stuff like on the sideline, or like my trainer would have it, or like when I was in goal, like just put it in the goal box, and so have access to that. With running, yeah, you can have access to it, but like you're not always carrying everything. It's a constant duration, right? I think the biggest thing was just being confident in that like my blood sugar is not going to go low during that. And like a low blood sugar, for those that aren't familiar with it, basically it feels like you're just bonking over and over again. And like for us with diabetes, can't get it up naturally. Like you're having to like eat something or take in sugar, and like once you go hypoglycemic, it's really kind of like freaky. Like your brain almost starts to shut off, and like you basically get tunnel vision. I get super shaky and sweaty. I'll talk like a million miles an hour, and you it like complete hit to your performance. Like your legs feel like absolutely dead weights. And so I think just getting the confidence of like knowing I was going with someone who like knew my situation, like carrying snacks, and just like around that time, CGM came into the picture, which is a continuous glucose monitor. So instead of having to like finger prick every however much you like can handle, you're getting a constant reading every 5 minutes. And so that was a big game changer too. But the first few runs, honestly, like I couldn't even tell you, like I didn't know what I was doing, so it was nice to follow someone around. And then fast forward after I was done with those like 1 hour exploratory runs, and I was in grad school actually training with people doing halves and full marathons. I remember the first time I ran over 10 miles, and I like was so pumped, but then I like went home and I like chugged like a whole thing of like chocolate milk, and I was like, oh, this is awesome, and then saw my blood sugar spike, and it was one of those like, oh, okay, well, cool. Like we saw double digits for like the first time ever, and it's like something to celebrate. And now 10 miles sometimes is like an easy in between day for me. So yeah, but a lot of learning in those early days, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. We all have them, and stories are could be insane.
Like we're switching from like all the fast twitch sprint stuff to just like, oh, like I have to kind of slow down so that I can go for further. And like that's a hard mentality to switch to because like I think, I mean, even myself included, we start too fast and like your goal is to go for an hour, but if you start too fast, you're not going to make it for an hour. So
Yeah, that must have been a wild transition because you're used to 800s and then you're running for distance. Plus, you were playing
soccer,
soccer, which is technically fast switch, high intensity, or VO2, depending on the match.
short, short duration more so like for based on my position anyways. It's not like I was
Yeah.
a midfielder, so yeah.
I mean, you're still, like you said, doing burpees and whatnot, or
Yeah, like
jumping laterally.
the training was super intense, like physical fitness. It was more like the games were like rest days for me as a
Were you
goalkeeper.
lifting in those times too? It sounded like yes, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So we were a D1 program, so we had lifts like three to four mornings a week, 5 a.m. on the dots. Yeah, and more in like the off season. Yeah, and I truly love the weight room, and to this day I still keep in touch with my strength and conditioning coach. And every time I go back up to Marquette, I go to the gym. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, lift. I started with lifting myself, so I can relate. Still love it to this day. It's changed, obviously, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah,
We can't
absolutely.
be bodybuilding anymore.
Like as much as you want to do both, it's very counterintuitive.
But yeah, I've that's a lesson. I had to learn the hard way. Unfortunately, it's just
Mhm.
you break down. It's just you can't do both at the same time. You think you can, maybe when younger, but even then, it's probably not intuitive. What was the transition for you? Like, what made you go, okay, look, I'm playing soccer, I'm strength training, I'm in this D1 program, I was doing 800s as well, I'm running longer now. When did that switch happen to like I'm going for longer distances?
That's a good question. I mean, I think just starting to run with the run club at our university really helped because I had like a group to follow that were like training for a half marathon, and so I would just jump in on their runs and their workouts, and they don't care if I say this, but they're all older guys, so like our professors and whatnot. And one of them was actually type 1. So he was the second athlete I met that had type 1. The first was actually a cross country runner at Marquette. And so he was like, oh, you can do this. But he was a walk on, and like we had very different stories and stuff. So he would at least like introduce the technology to me. But then John, the one I met, he worked at the university. He was diagnosed later in life, though, like at 35. And so he was an Ironman guy and had done an Ironman without diabetes and then did one with, and just kind of was there to be my mentor of like, this is the difference. And he's the guy I did my first ever, like, quote, long run for. I think when they were training for the half marathon when I did like 12, and I remember having to like stop and like take sugar, and then yeah, just like learning from him I think was really important. And so that transition kind of just happened naturally because I just needed a new challenge after soccer, and those guys like got me out of bed in the morning like when I was trying to do my thesis and write my thesis. And they one day were like, "Oh, we're doing this half. Like, you should join." And so I jumped in the half marathon, and it went pretty well. And then like, "All right, now you have to join us for the full marathon in the fall." And I was like,
Oh.
"Absolutely not! Like, I'm not doing the full." Fast forward, I ended up doing the full because I can't say no. So, yeah.
Was that just for time frame there? Was that like a little bit after college?
Yeah, so it would have been in the 2015, 2016 timeframe, and I started in 2010. I graduated with my bachelor's in 14, and I stayed at Marquette for my master's. So it was mainly in that grad school like years of 2015 to 2016. Yeah.
Nice. What drove you and like kept you inspired to keep going, with type 1 at the time? It sounds like you had some mentors. Was it the mentors or what else kept driving you to like, hey, I'm going to stick
Um,
with this endurance thing?
I'm just competitive and I wanted a challenge. And I think at the time I didn't realize it, but showing people that you can do marathons and you can do not just a marathon, but a competitive, like fast marathon for a time performance goal with type 1. And actually, a lot of the training helps your diabetes long term. That said, like, I could sit on my butt and not work out and probably keep my blood sugar steadier just because of the like, oh, we have to fuel more. And like a lot of that fuel is sugar. And so sometimes you overcorrect and you spike your blood sugar. You're working out really hard. And so you're going to lower your blood sugar. So because like we're being athletic, you're going to have these fluctuations you have to adapt to. But in terms of like overall health, it actually does help your like metabolism and endocrine system, which is where type 1 kind of is rooted. So. Yeah.
Gotcha. What was you mentioned fast times, and I'm sure we'll get to the faster ones later, but what was those first half and full times like?
I don't remember the halftime, but I remember surprising myself. I think it was under 130, and I had no expectations whatsoever. I just kind of ran with the group I was training with. My first full, I ran in 252, which looking back, I'm like, wow, like I am so fortunate. I had such a positive first marathon
Yeah.
experience, and like ran a 252 and placed third. Because that was in 2016, and so that was the Olympic Trials year before I even knew what Olympic Trials was. And so the two girls that placed ahead of me, I was actually like gaining on the second place girl, and they had been trying to go for the 245 because that was the standard at the time. And I had just like no joke. I had planned on running my marathon at 7-minute pace because we did like this. The guy who was kind of coaching us or just like leading the run group, his like go-to workout the week before a marathon is to not look at your watch and run 3 by mile at what you think is your marathon effort, and that's probably like where you should start. So I was
Yeah.
running about like 6:45, and I'm like, oh, that sounds good. My watch died at mile 2, so I had no watch. And so I'm like, oh, I'll just run. And then I realized, like, as I was running, they had like clocks and stuff, but like the math, I was like, oh, I think I'm like under my goal pace. But then one of the cross country coaches at Marquette, he ended up running with me. I was like, what pace are you running? And he's like 6:20. And I'm like, oh no, like I'm gonna bonk. This is at like mile 15. He's like, you seem fine. Like you should just stick with it. And so I think if I'd had a watch on that first marathon, I might have like held myself back a bit. But I actually like ran faster than I planned on and realized I was capable of it. And since I was so diligent on like having to fuel a lot because of my type 1, like it worked out well, right? And I can't say that's worked out that well since,
Yeah.
but I had a great first experience. I ran a 252. The girls that got first and second, I met them and asked them about their goals, and that's when the whole like Olympic Trials marathon idea popped in my head. Even though I was like, oh, I've got a long ways to go, but like that was the first time I ever heard about that. So.
No, that's cool. And you had a great experience, like you mentioned, and then you got,
Yeah, which isn't
1 and
always the
2.
case. There's
Oh,
been the other
yeah.
ones in there too, so yeah.
Question for you on the running without a watch. Is that something you still practice today? Like, I feel like that encourages people to just run on feel and pace.
Yeah, I do it less than I probably should or want to, and mainly it's just to like check, like hold myself accountable for like not running too fast. But I do truly think like if you're coming back from an injury or illness or just like stressed in general in terms of like your career, personal life, I think running without a watch is a really powerful tool because you truly listen to your body, and that's sometimes when you can surprise yourself. Like I think if we're like putting mental boundaries in our head, it can really like cause another stress response in your body that you don't need. Um, yeah, but
No, I agree with
I
that
can
as
get into
well.
that with coaching too. I'm actually about to write an article on, I have the title of it, but it's going to be on what the heck is race pace effort and what does that mean? And then like, quote, dare I say run without a watch, because a lot of the athletes I coach now, I'll just prescribe if they're newer or they're kind of in their off season, I'm like, hey, let's run 5K effort. And they're like, what's 5K effort? I just need 5K pace. And I'm like, well, okay, imagine yourself running a 5K. You're on that verge of redlining, right? But like you're not like you're at threshold but not quite, and like that's the pace I want you to run at, or the effort I want you to run at. And when you're in season, that might be a 6:30 pace. When you're out of season, it's probably closer to 7. So I need it on effort. I don't want you to go try to hammer 6:30s because that's your 5K pace and feel like absolute garbage and then like hate running, so
Yeah, similar thoughts myself, and that's exactly why I asked the question. Like, I feel like oftentimes we have so much tech nowadays that we kind of get wrapped up in it, or like feel is different, or we're chasing last year's PB versus where I'm at today. And that's a whole rabbit hole within itself.
It is, and it's so tough, especially this day and age, and then add in environmental factors and everything too. So.
Yeah, environmental, friends, social media, and whatnot. We'll touch on it a bit because I do want to ask you about coaching. But walk me through like your day to day a little bit. Not like so you got work, but biomechanical engineer. How do you balance? I introed a little bit. You run, you coach, you got type one. You're managing that, and you do it at a very well high level. I'll say. How do you manage all that on a day to day basis?
I mean, if I could fully answer that, I mean, I should be paid for that answer. But the truth is like, it's not perfect.
Yeah.
It's really not. And like, I know other people who do like this magnitude of things, and I'm sure you're close. I know you run, you coach, you probably have another day job, and throw in people that also have families and stuff. Like, it's a lot. And I think the biggest learning lesson is not every day is going to be perfect, and you've got to learn how to adapt, and not hold yourself to hold yourself to 100% on the day, and that might be 50% another day, 120% another day. Like, that's kind of been my thing, is like manage the effort, and it's not just for training, it's for life. And I think when I'm off balance and not managing my effort well, I like then struggle. I can see the effect in my own training, and honestly sometimes that's okay. I'm like, hey, this is a season that I'm focusing on my athletes because a lot of them are racing. I don't have a goal race anytime soon. I have a big deliverable at work, and so those are my two things. So I kind of like shift my priorities by season, and still it's like not perfect. Sometimes like a season is 3 or 4 of those things that I'm having to focus on, and it's hard. And so then you have to find one that gives a little bit. And so like, for instance, right now, my day to day, I mean, I actually, so this is a good example. Today I was supposed to go run a hill workout this morning, and you know what? I woke up, and yesterday I've kind of had to shift my schedule because I was out of town this weekend in the mountains and did a lot of mountain training, which, great training, speed, hills, endurance. Like, we did a like long run, but I'm kind of like feeling the effects 2 days later, and I have some like big work deadlines this week. And so this morning I'm like, you know what, like the hills are not a great idea. I'm going to take my dog for a walk, like check in with my body, get a lot of work done this morning because I'm really productive in the morning. And so from about like 6 a.m. to before this call, I was just working on deliverables, stuff I have this week. And it's a day, like I know I can control my schedule in terms of work. And yeah, that hill workout needs to get done this week, but I'm going to probably do it tomorrow, and I'll do like a medium long run tonight, which kind of helps me reset. And it's like those days that I'm like, okay, I'm stressed in this aspect of my life. So I like to account like work stress, daily stress, diabetes stress. My blood sugars are also like on the higher end today and yesterday, just because I'm coming back from altitude and training.
Yeah.
So like that stress is like the equivalent of a tempo effort, in my mind. And so I'm not going to just go run a tempo run on top of like already being in that state of like tempo effort. So like, hey, today's a great day for like a medium long easy day. Like I don't need a short day. I need a medium long day, but then the medium long day can be whatever pace I want. So after this, I'll like get some good food, finish up some work, wait till it's a little bit cooler. And like Tuesdays are also my gym days, so I'll do like a medium long run in gym. I'll keep it more on just like power explosive, like not super heavy, because I know I have that hill workout tomorrow now. Say I woke up and I felt great and I was ready to run hills this morning, I would have done the hill workout, and then I would have done more like a power, heavier gym session tonight, because I like to keep hard days hard, easy days easy. And keep the theme the same. So that's kind of how I structure my week. And again, like I have athletes, I'll do some coaching calls. I think I have one this afternoon, and tonight I'll just go over everyone's logs for the week. And I always have athletes ask like, hey, can I move this workout? And most of the time the answer is yes. Other times I'm like, today's a day you actually got to get it in, and do what you can. Let's manage the effort. And I hold the same standard for myself. So yeah, that's kind of what the days look like. Again, I have some fluidity because that's the way to keep myself sane and like make sure my priorities are being met.
Well, it sounds like healthy as well too, which is important.
Yeah, for sure. And like again, like a couple weeks ago, I went out to grandma's marathon because one of my athletes, she's insane. She's had such a cool marathon progression. She's not type 1, but she works full time at Sandia where I work. And she just ran a 2:33 at grandma's on a tough day. Yeah. And so I also raced the half. And so everyone's like, oh, how'd your half go? And like my instinct is to say, oh, like I'm really disappointed. I should have still been running faster, even though I've not been focusing on half. I went out there to support her. My goal was focused on her. I mean, I still ran a 119, which is like, but in my mind, I'm like, oh, that's 3 minutes slower than my PR. I should have been at least a little closer to like 115. But I'm like, wait, why? Like, this is my season of coaching, work, and then training to just like train for general fitness so that I can really switch into focusing on my key races in the fall. And I'm like, if I was in 115 shape right now, I think I'd be concerned. So just trying to remind ourselves that like, hey, like, especially if you're taking on this much on your plate, like you can't always be at peak fitness or you're not always going to peak perform.
No, agreed. And I like how that approach of yours with like seasons and just kind of sounds like you take some time to reflect on, okay, what's this moment in a couple of months looking like versus,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. And like
in
in a couple
hindsight.
months, I'm going to have to take some sacrifices, of course. But yeah. But right now I'm like, let's just do it all.
How does with type 1 glucose monitoring affect you? And for those listening, I would love it so that you can share. And obviously, for those listening, I'll have some links and stuff of Sophie's stuff. But can you share for those listening with type 1 or those with some insight? What is, like, for example, a high block mileage for you in monitoring glucose? You got gels at play, you got food at play. It can different impacts to you in the day. What's that like for you?
Uh, Great question. So, I'm trying to think the best way to answer this. So yeah, like my mileage honestly is I don't really like count mileage per weeks, but I'm usually like I do try to run almost every day. Mondays are my like flexible day if I need a day off. The funny thing is like more often than not Mondays are my more free days, so I'm like, well, I'm gonna go run because I have time. But it's usually just one of those watch this runs where I take my dog who like limits my pace, especially in the summer. But the mileage really like now that I've been healthy for like years, not had injuries. I'm usually around 50 to 60, like no matter what. And that's kind of like my baseline and my baseline metabolism that really helps me lock into like my daily like calorie, protein, carb needs, which again, I think I sent you the article I just released. Like people are like, oh, how many carbs do you eat a day? How many do you eat in like an hour run? I'm like, honestly, I don't like anti what some people are trying to do is like I absolutely need to have 60 grams of carbs an hour during my run. I'm like that just like sometimes that would completely spike my blood sugar. And yeah, like I'm a big fan of you need calories during the run, but it's not always just short acting like glucose because for me like running at 250 I'm going to feel terrible, whereas I'd rather have like a few like gummy bears or like something that has a little more protein in it like every 15 minutes so that I'm not spiking. So just like little things like that. And for that 50 to 60 like just general mileage when I'm in off season, it keeps me at like a very predictable baseline for my diabetes. And so then like I kind of fuel the carbs around my runs. I still have a workout day a week, so it's either track, tempo, hills, and then I have a long run a week. When I get into season, for the first time ever actually like post trials, I tried to do 90 plus mile weeks before trials and ended up slightly injured, but now like I'm able to sustain 95-mile weeks like no problem. And so a lot of that has been slowing down easy days, increasing my fueling, increasing my carb needs strategically, not fueling with carbs all at once but like throughout the day. So really like honing in on that nutrition and the needs. Because as a type 1 you still need carbs, you still need protein's a little bit more important, and creating like a mixed meal out of those carbs, so combining the carbs with fat and protein helps absorb and not completely spike, so you're doing this all day. Because like if you're roller coastering, that's like literally how your mental health is going to go, that's how your physical health is going to go. So like literally if I look at my blood sugars and it's going up and down, I'm like, well, this is fun. So I'm trying to keep them as flat as possible. But yeah.
And my understanding is correctly that, and correct me if I'm wrong any moment here, but that for you at least, you're having protein with carbs, albeit maybe a little bit during your runs as well to kind of offset those spikes,
Yeah,
and that works for you.
it does, and it's hard for a lot of people on stomach, but when I say protein, it's not a lot. I mean, like, so for instance, Haribo gummy bears have like 1 to 2 grams of protein in them, and like you would never know it, but just that alone slows the absorption. Things like there's not protein in them, but they're like super starch, so they're meant to absorb slower. The Huma, for instance, has chia seeds. I'm a big fan of chia seeds. I do like chia pudding like every morning. That just has a little bit of fiber. So like anything like extra mixed into the carbs is gonna help. Or you just take what you would in like a single serving and spread it out a little bit over like 20 minutes. And you kind of effectively create like that low glycemic type of food. The only problem with that is like you're holding like half gel packets or like half scratch chew packets like while you're running, and it's just awkward because like they'll either spill or like yeah, but worth
No,
it.
I get that. Big fan of Yuma myself here for similar reasons. At least as the slowing down, it's just easier on my stomach. I find that's one of my favorites when I'm not
Yeah,
like racing and just in general.
yeah, and just
Um,
like the more natural feels too. Like I've been into like date fix, so it's like just pure dates, and then the honey stinger has honey. So yeah, I'm not really like brand tied to anything. It's just more natural foods are better too. But,
Agreed. That's kind of my thing. The more well, I should say nowadays, the more
yeah,
natural food.
exactly.
What's your pre-run feel like? Breakfast or long run breakfast, race
Yeah.
breakfast.
I mean, like you guys are probably people that are listening that have heard my stuff before are probably sick of me saying sourdough avocado toast, but like it's just such a go-to, and it's funny because now all my friends that like I go camping with or like trips on, they're all into it, and I don't know. We always joke like who came across it first, but like you can always find loaves of sourdough bread and a ton of avocados and like the everything bagel seasoning because that's just what we all eat. And they're like now cyclists. They used to run. Actually, one of my friends used to run for Atlanta Track Club, but yeah, we all just like sourdough avocado toast. And sourdough has like the natural occurring like pre and probiotics. And so again, like while it's not protein, it's something that's going to absorb slower into the system and be more sustainable. And then the avocado also helps as like a sustainable fuel, even especially for longer endurance efforts. When if you're going to go sprint, it's not going to help you as much
Yeah.
because you need like fuel right away and fast. But like for those longer efforts, even with sprint workouts, like having that 2 hours before, it's still going to be there, right? And I'm always a fan of a little bit of dark chocolate with my coffee because like priorities. But yeah,
Dark
raw,
chocolate for the win. Okay.
yeah, raw like not 80% plus. Yeah.
I will admit I'm not the craziest about dark chocolate, but here in my household, there's a whole dark chocolate epidemic, and I'm just like, can I just get the regular? Obviously, it's not the same benefits, but hey,
Yeah, it's fine.
you mentioned friends. I'm curious, like with running so much, and type one and Olympic qualifier. What's the support like? Family, friends, and stuff. What's their thoughts on it?
This is a good question. So yeah, so my family, my sister ran track in college. She ran at Texas Tech, track and cross country. So whereas I played soccer, she started in soccer too, but she had some like back and hip issues. So running just suited her. So she gets the sport. Like she was honestly I call her my first coach. I mean, she basically just told me to go run, but between us. Just following her around when she'd come back for holidays. Like I'd be the soccer player coming back, and she'd come back from and have like a 8 mile run, and I'd have like just go exercise.
Yeah.
So I just like follow her around, and I'd like cap out at 4, and she'd keep going. So definitely like she understands the sport. My mom and dad are both athletic themselves. Think I'm a little bit crazy, but what's um, yeah, they're totally supportive. They came to Olympic trials. It's one of those like they get it, but then sometimes like when we're on family vacation and I'm like, hey, I have a 2 hour run today. They're like, do you really have to run 2 hours? But they're starting to get it more, and like some of my biggest fans and supporters, and think it's cool like seeing how more and more type ones are doing the same thing. My mom's friends will like see things and like pass along information, and yeah, but then so that's my family. My friends all kind of are some form of athlete or other, and we're all super supportive of each other. Like our text message is friends supporting friends doing crazy things. We're all like tracking each other. One of our guys is a para triathlete, and so he is an above
That's
knee
cool.
amputee. So we all kind of have like our whys and support each other, and yeah.
That's really
Have a
cool.
running group here, Duke's Track Club. Also have a foundation which is loosely related to Embrace the Grind. It's Diabetes Sports Project. It's a nonprofit. So another like whole cohort of type 1 athletes, and we have like our own group message of just like throwing questions in like, hey, this happened to me during my long run. Has anyone had this happen to their CGM? Like it kind of like glitched out. What do I do? So just all of those resources where it's like you could throw a question in the chat and someone's going to respond. So
That's really cool. Yeah. Have a whole network making it happen.
yeah.
Um, Talk to me about Embrace the Grind. How did that start? You're the founder of Embrace the Grind. Tell us for those listening, everything involved with.
Yeah, so embrace the grind. Let's see. So I've had an athlete for at least 10 years. My first athlete, and she's still with me, I met in San Diego, and because I used to live out there when I worked for Dexcom. And the JDRF, so at the time it was JDRF, Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, had a half marathon team for the San Diego Rock and Roll. And they asked me to be a volunteer coach, and so I had about 5 people with type 1. And then my friend Annie like stuck with me since then, and yeah, so she was kind of my first athlete, and through the years, like it's either been word of mouth, people are like, hey, I want to do Boston for the first time, will you help me out? And so that's how it started, and I just realized that I had this love for like giving back everything I've learned and all like the lows and the highs, like literally and figuratively, of running with type 1 and as a full-time professional, and how to fit training in. And so like that's kind of how I grew my business. And then again, it wasn't formal, kind of on the side. During COVID, I started picking up a few more athletes, and then I decided to go get certified. And so I took a couple of different courses, and then I also took like CPR and all that stuff through like I was also soccer coaching at the time, so that I've had to say no to. I don't coach soccer anymore, but which is a bummer. But it was also like giving away my weekends when I got to get runs in and stuff. So yeah, so then the last couple years, I honestly started to have a vision of like, what is my why and like my mantra. And I think I finally just had to like pull the trigger. A couple of my close friends were like, you need to just like businessize this. And I'm like, okay. And then one of my other friends is like, hey, like I've been working in building websites. Like, let me just help you like play around with ideas. So we'd meet for coffee. And so it was a lot of them starting to hold me accountable because I just kept kicking the can down the road. And then one time I was running. I think the first idea I had was like, oh, I should make it an acronym of like BG, like blood glucose. And so I think I first thought of back to the grind. And so that it was going to be like BG racing team or something, back to the grind. And then I was like, oh, that's kind of like, I don't know if I love the back to. I'm like, because where are we coming back from? And so then I just like every day, I know, I was like, this is now going to be awkward. And it was really because I wanted that BG. But, when we started looking at like domain names and stuff, I don't know how I came across Embrace, but I was like, you know what, every aspect, like I was having, I think, a tough week where it was just hard to get out the door. Like I had so many things going on. I also like moved, like rented my house, and I'm like, this is just literally a grind that I have to get through because I still have a race in 2 weeks that I'm going to do, and I've got to go get my long run in. I've got to get this workout in. And like, if anyone that knows me, they know I'm going to get my workouts in no matter what, even if it's at stupid hours in the day on the treadmill. And so I'm like, what am I doing? I'm embracing it. Like I have to, like there's no other option. And so that's kind of how the name came about. I floated it to a couple of my athletes who have been with me for a while, and they're like, oh, I love it. And so then that kind of came about and made the website, and had to put my mission like on a page. And so, yeah, that's where we are. But
Nice,
yeah.
dope. Okay, so you started coaching through Embrace the Grind, right? What are some, I'm curious, as a fellow coach, what are some of you've done it for some time now, what are some of your philosophies that are yours for coaching?
Good question. I think the biggest thing is the initial conversation is so key, and just like learning, and I tell like my athletes, I'm like, at some point I want to grow big enough that I can take on anyone and everyone who has a vision and a goal, even if it's just general health or just like I want to learn how to run a 5K living with type 1 diabetes or having a full-time job and kids. Because I have some people that fall into that camp too. And honestly, like watching people have like 3 kids and a full-time job try to fit in a 5K is almost as hard as like just living with type 1 trying to fit in a 5K. It's a different type of like reasons and stress and like things we have to consider in training. But I think right now I can't just take on everyone because I have a full-time job, right? So I'm kind of capped. But the initial conversation I will always have with anyone interested, and it always comes down to like, okay, I'm not gonna like call you up and be like, you need to get out of bed and get your run in. I trust that you're gonna have like that ounce of motivation. You just need some boundaries around it, right? Or like we need to like have baby steps. Like we can't just jump to like the main goal. Some people are really good at like limiting themselves and telling themselves, no, like I don't feel like great, I'm not going to run. Others, like where I come from as an athlete, are like, oh, it hurts a little bit, we can run through it. Like learning how to tell them no, or like let's not overdo it, or like I prescribe 6 to 8 miles and they always do the 8. Like that's someone that I'm like, dude, like, well, I feel like I'm cheating myself if I only run 6. And I'm like, well, literally 6 was prescribed, like you're still meeting the goal of the workout. So some of my athletes like that, I'm like, I will, if I give them 6 to 8 and I know they're tired, I will only put 6, not 6 to 8, because I know they'll still do the 8. And so philosophies are hard days hard, easy days easy. I mean, I think a lot of coaches have that philosophy, but when I say that, I like truly mean it. And like a lot of athletes don't know what easy means, and like Strava and all that stuff plays into it. And as a type 1, like if like I kind of have them like check in with me on what are their blood sugars and what is their range been, because if they've been high and low, like that basically, like I'll wake up feeling like I was hit by a train, and I'm like, you're already starting your run compromise. So I was like, this is an easy day where I'm like, our easy range could be 8 to 8:30, but I want it on the 8:30, or I want you to just go run flat, like no hills. Other times when I'm like, hey, we need to push this, and like the effort needs to be high because I know you've been feeling good, you've been feeling strong. This is going to be a hard day, and it's going to be a longer day, and then I want you to go do your gym session like that night, or if you can that day, because we got to train the body to be resilient. But then the next day is like very tapered back, right? And so it's pushing when like you can push hard, and really taking it easy when you just can't. And then I'm a big fan of life too on the side of running. So like if they want to go on a camping trip or a ski trip in the winter, like I'm all for that. And I think the biggest thing I've added to my coaching is factoring in like kind of equivalence, right? So if they go ski all day for an hour, I'm like, let's just do 30 minutes because you just skied all day, and let's do 30 minutes of like a shakeout. And if you can't fit it in, that ski time is the equivalent of probably a 1 to 2 hour run day, depending on how hard you're going. And so not trying to make up workouts, but actually using cross training as like a running equivalent, versus like myself in the past, I've gone skiing all day and I'd have an 8-mile run and I'd do both, and then I'd have a longer the next day and I'm like, wow, I feel really tired. But like, again, those back-to-back days can actually be really powerful for marathoners and ultra runners, for instance, because you are running on tired legs as long as you're smart about it.
How do you, go ahead.
Enough too, so I think that makes me a little unique too, is just the strength training aspect. And obviously I have a whole side of like diabetes management too, but yeah.
It's funny you brought up strength. That's exactly what I wanted to touch on. How do you blend your preference of blending both?
Yeah, so well, one, history is really important. Like I'm not going to throw someone who's has zero history of strength training into barbell workouts.
Yeah.
But I do think like one, figuring out time management and the days that they have more time. And if not, like then we've got to like come up with a compromise. Like, hey, you have a 20 to 30 minute routine right before, right after you run. And sometimes that's like all we can fit in, but it's better than nothing. So figuring out what they have time for, what their goals are. If their goals are speed and power or something shorter than a marathon, strength training looks a lot different. If it's marathon and they're injury prone, we kind of like have to break down what that injury is. And it's usually always coming back to like hip strength, lower back strength, foot strength for like lower leg injuries, and just adding in some of those like either activation exercises, but then also the eccentrics and like different types of like isometric exercises that you basically go through every step of a marathon, like the single leg stuff. So it does look different for a lot of people. If I have an athlete coming to me who did a sport in college and is like knows all of the powerlifting days, usually if they're still interested and have access to a gym, 1 to 2 heavier lift days, I think is important. And then another, I guess, philosophy in terms of strength training. So I have some athletes that their goal is solely either to like lose weight, and that's great, like if that's your goal. But I always tell those types of people, I'm like, hey, if we're in a losing weight block, we cannot have a performance goal tied to it. And it sometimes challenges their mentality. They're like, well, what do you mean? Like, we can't go for like a time goal while I'm trying to lose weight. I'm like, because they're just counterintuitive. Like, time goals, you've got to fuel for, and I'm not, you're risking too much injury there. So I'm like, you either focus on losing weight, and we're going to really keep runs not full out, and you have like some interval training and then some long endurance efforts, and then we'll do some more weight training to build that resilience while you're on this weight loss journey. And then when we switch to a performance goal, it's all focused on like the running workouts, and I need you to fuel through it. So that's another piece of the puzzle too.
No, that last one's music to my ears. I find that a lot myself in coaching. I've had it in the past myself. It's like, yeah, losing weight is one thing, but you really need to eat for this marathon. The longer the distance, obviously, ultra, same thing, you have to eat. So when you try to take some of that off and do the other, you're just asking for it.
Yeah, it's a hard like realization to come to, because I think you can have either goal, but like both, I've never had, I wouldn't call it like not successful, but just something has to give, and a frustration will happen. So like mentally it's tough, physically it's tough, like, and the biggest thing is I don't want anyone to start to hate the sport. And I think if you try to do both, you're going to hate the sport.
Of course, yeah.
To be trying to run these like fast workouts on like depleted system, and it's just like, that's not fun.
Not fun at all. Recovery goes to the toilet, which means you can't run as much.
Yeah.
On that, you've been coaching a while, I guess. What would you say are some of the key things that always come up for you within like athletes? Some key, let's say, commonalities that come up both on the spectrum of success and also like you wish people knew more.
Ooh, I think the importance of short speed efforts for marathoning. I mean, like, we all know that that's a thing, and going to the track is a thing, but the why behind it. So there's that, and then I think navigating injuries is always a big one, and like when to call it, and like how serious is too serious, and like how everyone has a different pain tolerance when it comes to workouts and when it comes to injury, and so navigating those waters. But I think going back to the speed training for marathoning, like I'm a huge advocate, and a lot of what like I've learned in like my physiology courses and just over the years of even like biomedical engineering is like you want to start least specific to most specific. So like if you have a 3-month block, and that's another thing, like a lot of these athletes come to me thinking they need a 5-month block for a marathon, and I'm like, but if they're already like decently fit, I'm like, why do you need a 5-month block? Like if you're going from like couch potato to marathon, yeah, 5 months is probably like, you're already coming in with your 50-mile per week, and you think you need pace. I was like, no. So that's when I would start more with speed, and or finding and kind of like navigating through what's the athlete's strengths and weaknesses. And so a lot of my marathoners, their weakness is speed and track. They can tempo for days, but like give them like 400s or 200s, dare I say, on a track. They're like, it's like, no. And it's funny because my mentality is, I'm like, put me on the track. Heck yeah. Like, yeah. And so just focusing on like learning new things to really like, one, it helps just with cadence and with form. Two, I think it helps the body, especially as a type 1, use different fueling systems. So when you're doing sprints, when you're doing hills, when you're taking like long recovery for really short duration efforts, it actually teaches your body how to like use glucose in the interim sense, but also have to rely on fat stores at the same time. Whereas like longer endurance efforts or tempo efforts are going to be solely that like fat burning, less reliant on like the immediate glucose source. And so if you can combine both, then you can use both in a marathon, right? Because like even though the marathon is really using that aerobic capacity, there's going to be a point in the marathon where you're not feeling great and it's going to feel like a sprint, or at the end when you're trying to hit a time goal where you need to be able to like rely on how like you've done the anaerobic training that teaches your body to use glucose fast. And so teaching the body to do both is important. And I think it's uncomfortable for a lot of athletes to start in speed and then get into the longer tempos, but it really, I think, like helps. And on that note, balancing weaknesses and strengths in workouts instead of like giving athletes all of their workouts geared around their weaknesses. So like for me, for instance, one of the biggest things I changed working up to Olympic trials or trying to qualify was like I had a coach who was like, hey, like you struggle with long endurance tempos, and that's what the marathon is, which is ironic, but like with like 14-mile marathon pace runs, and I was just miserable. I'm like, this is the last thing I want to do. Yeah, I should be able to do it, but like mentally I was just like, this isn't fun. And so like we still did those workouts, but then like a few days later I'd be on the track doing 200s, and it seemed silly, like people knowing my goals, but I was like, it's those workouts I look forward to. And then we started combining the two. Like I do some like hill repeats and then go for a tempo and then end with hill repeats. So I'm like looking forward to what I like to do. And so those combo workouts can really help like just train the mind, train the body. Yeah.
No, I like that and agreed. Obviously, like if you're having fun, the stuff you do like doing, you're gonna keep going, and you do need to push it a little bit at times, but the balance is key. And I love how you touched on having to work on both systems, because at the end of the day, and you're a mile 24 or whatever, your heart rate's up in the sky, and you're running slow, the heart's still beating fast. So,
And if you've never triggered that in a workout, you that's where the brain is like, I can't do this. But if you've had to do it before, it's like, okay, well, I can push through it for a little bit. Then usually it comes back around, right? But,
you touched on it a little bit earlier, but like, when did the moment go, you know what, I'm gonna go for this, and you went for it? What was that?
it was the year of. So uh, maybe like don't do this at home type thing. But like this next like 4-year block, I'm like, I'm gonna like actually qualify 3 years in advance, not the year of. But long story short, so I went through like a big kind of like relationship like ending after like 5 years, and it was tough and not the easiest. And so I just started kind of running a lot more. Not that I wasn't running, but I was like, all right, how fast can I like get? And so just started jumping into some of the workouts with like our club here, the Duke's Track Club, and they were all training for marathons, and so just like getting back into like being very like, let's see how fast I can do this tempo workout. Let's see how fast I can do this speed workout. But I also wasn't running that high mileage because it was ski season and I'm a huge skier. So this would have been like December 2022 to January 2023. And so I like on a whim I was supposed to do it with my family, but then my dad ended up having to go to the UK for work. Went out to run Arizona Rock and Roll half marathon, and went out there and like had never run, actually I think I'd done it once, but really had never like consistently run under 120 and a half. And I ran like a 115 off of like just a few tempo runs and a few speed workouts on a day. It was pouring rain in Phoenix, and that's not an easy course. And I basically told myself I was just going to stick with the front pack as much as I could and like take my fuel and just see what happens. I didn't really plan on sticking with the 115 pack, but when I realized it and like at the time like felt pretty good, I was like, why not? And so running with a really experienced pack in like that moment in time, one of the girls I'd raced before and she'd beaten me by like 4 minutes. I was like, I probably have no business running here. But like even her, like she was like, hey, what are you trying to run today? I was like, because she wasn't having a great day. I was like, I just want a PR. And like at this point, I'm like on a course for a PR. And she's like, just manage your effort on the hills. And so it was like kind of freaky because we were running like 540s. And then we got to the big hill going up into Papago Park, and like she slowed the group down to like 6-minute pace. And I'm like looking at my watch, like we're like really slow now, like kind of freaking out. And she's like, it'll come back, like just stay patient. And I think slowing down to that 6-minute effort, which is probably the equivalent of like a 5:30 on a flat, like saved my race. And so you get to the top and it's like not 3 miles left downhill. And I just remember like having so much energy, and running like 5:30s the rest of it and having a big PR. And so like that off of like minimal training and, I called my coach and he was just like, yeah, I think, I think we should go for Olympic trials if you're up for it. Like you've got 8 months basically to qualify. Since you did that off of like minimal training, like I think you have it in you. And so, we immediately signed up for grandmas in June, CIM as a backup, and then started training. Was really excited about it. Went out to Carlsbad 5,000, ran a 5K PR. Had a blast, and then had like a 20-mile long run the next weekend. Went well, and I started to get this like weird like hip thing and like sciatica, and like work was really stressful, and just like everything started like kind of unraveling like a month before grandma's, and I'm just like, I don't think I can go run a 2:37 at grandma's. And so we kind of had this like hard talk, like, is it worth still going to try? And I was like, I don't think my body can. So we ended up just taking like a month off, which was freaky because now we're like,
Off?
no, no, like I was running. It was like a month of like run how you feel. And I truly like trusted it, even though it was hard knowing I'm like, now, okay, now we're putting all of our eggs in one basket. But like then around the same time, the McCurdy Micro New York Marathon came up. And so I got into that. So then I had the October one and it was a little sooner. I'm like, cool, like now I have a goal. So going into that one, could not have had more of a perfect training block. I hit every single workout, every single pace, was so excited about it, feeling like had all my bottles set up, hadn't run a marathon. I think what got me, so like fast forward to the end, I didn't qualify at this one, but like I felt amazing for 18 miles and then like started cramping, basically had to like crawl across the finish line, and I still ran a 2:42, so I PR'd. I think I had ran a 2:49 in 2019, when I had tried to qualify for the 2:45, and had a rough day of diabetes and everything. And that was the last time I'd ran a marathon, was 2019. And so the McCurdy one was frustrating because my blood sugar spiked to over 300. I did not know the impact of adrenaline on blood sugars because I hadn't been in a marathon situation where I had this huge like goal, right, in a long time. And adrenaline is a powerful thing, especially when it comes to blood sugar. Like I guarantee people without diabetes, they spike the same, but just not to that level, and like their body can correct with insulin on the spot, whereas ours can't. But like adrenaline spikes are a real thing, and so was reminded that the hard way. So I remember like sitting at dinner that night and like knowing I had the fitness to run a 2:37 based on like my 18 miles at it, and it was literally just the cramping from like my diabetes and just yeah, so I was like, we're gonna do CIM like 6 weeks later. That was like a not questionable decision. Like it was gonna happen. I was gonna go for it again. But like the biggest thing was like nailing down my insulin. And so CIM, I didn't even have an elite bib. I was only in the seated start, and so it made it even difficult because I didn't have bottles or anything. But at the same time, like the bottles at New York spiked me because I put carbs in them. And so I realized, hey, like I'm a salty sweater, so I need electrolytes. Even more so, especially like type 1. Basically what happens when your blood sugar is high is all of the water from your muscles tries to flood your like blood, basically to bring down the concentration of sugar, and so it just causes you to cramp. And it makes electrolytes important, it makes hydration important. So knowing I didn't have bottles at CIM, it might have actually helped because I knew I could only do water, and then I would take like salt tabs and then rely on like my food for carbs. And so yeah, like I mean, we went back to the drawing board. I was able to get medical on board and like have insulin on the course. And so I knew like with the spikes, I had to take insulin during, worked with like one of my diabetes mentors, and just with all the things, I had to practice those next 6 weeks of like taking insulin during and all the above. It's funny because like I was so focused on like figuring out how to take insulin while racing because that's what was going to hold me back. And actually like did not have a great training block. Like I got an infection from my glucose meter. I had to be antibiotics, like Thanksgiving was in there, and so I was like hanging out with family, like sleep was in, like decided to have a glass of wine. I was like, why not? Like I gotta live my life. Like just could have been it was not like the perfect build up to New York, right? And so like, yeah, those 6 weeks were, I was questioning it, but then I lined up and I'm like, hey, like you've been training at this pace for now like 6 months, like we've got this. And started the first 10 miles, felt terrible. Like, well, this is great. Like, but then I just was like, just believe, just keep fueling, keep like, saw a friend and she was having a good day too, and she's like, just tell your body to shut up, and like turned around like 18. I started in the seated and probably like the 150th like female. Like there was a whole group trying to OTQ, and then by 18 there was an official like counting up the like place. So he was like ninth, because I was with a group of 4 females, and he was like ninth, 10th, 11th, 12th female. And I was like, how the heck did I go from like probably 150th to like 12th? And so it was that like inspiration I needed and confidence I needed. I was like, well, I must have just been so like focused and not noticing what was happening. And so really cool. And by 22, I kind of in my mind knew I had it, even though I still had 4 miles to hold at that pace. And so I just started to get this excitement, and I think just being excited and like I was trying to smile at everyone, like just enjoy why I was there, and like even like take the fact that I kind of had this like, thank goodness, like I know I'm gonna actually do it, out of my brain. Like I was just trying to like enjoy the experience, and I think I forgot that at New York. I was so focused on the goal at hand. Really cool, and rounded the final turn at CAM and like saw like 236 low, and I'm like, all I have to do is like sprint it in. And actually the last mile my foot started hurting, and so I was like, of all things, and my friend literally was like, you can run a freaking 6-minute mile on a bum foot, like
Yeah.
1 mile. I'm like, oh, fine. Like, she's like, you're too
The
close.
mind's just not saying that at the time, though. But
And I don't even know what it was with my foot. Like it didn't bother me after, but it was just funny. Like why my foot? I don't know. But yeah, so it was pretty cool, and it was like a like surreal like finish line experience, because my parents had been at New York but couldn't make it to see them. So I was like a little, I went through this like little like sadness they weren't there, but at the same time I'm like, that was cool. And so I just like, yeah. Yeah. But
so, what was post like after you cross, you hit OTQ? What'd that feel like?
I think it was, I went through like a mix of just like, wow, I like I knew I had it in me. I had my doubts, but then just like was trying to remember like the why I started this in the first place. And I think for a little bit I forgot it, and just was really focused on performance and just trying to like be one of the fastest marathoners in the country. And that's not my why. My why is to inspire people that are full-time engineers, have a disease, and like you can still go do hard things. Like it just might take a few times. And I think just that all coming together, like, yeah, it took me a whole like 8 months dedicating to it, with like a month in there that I like couldn't even race like at grandma's. And so yeah, like less than perfect, but like all of that makes like you should always line up even if you're doubting it, because you never know how the day is going to go. And so yeah, just like never taking it for granted. And I was obviously like ecstatic, and like my mind the weeks after was like, I want to go compete at trials, and my body kind of told me the opposite. But like, hey, you've been training for a marathon for like almost a year now. Like, let's bet. So then I
No, that
like
was
had a blast. It was awesome, and like the support around like Albuquerque was really cool. And I was coaching at the time, and so like all of my athletes were so excited, and they had never like heard of what Olympic trials were. And the cool thing is now, like, I think this next wave, like, we're going to have a lot of athletes from Albuquerque going for it. And I mean, like, the girl I coach, and then some of the men that we've been training with, it's going to be cool. So,
so. Are you going for it yourself, or more on the coaching side?
yeah, I think I'd be kidding myself if I said I wasn't going to go for it. Like, I was talking to someone yesterday about it, and they had asked me the same thing, and I was like, "Yeah, of course." And I'm like, "It's not going to be easy." Like, I think it's wild, because I think my friend I'm coaching, like, I mean, now she could probably run a 237 in her sleep, and I'm like, for me, I'm not. I don't think, I think I have more in me in the marathon. I still just don't think it's going to be easy. And I've been having some fun on trails, and I think I've got some unfinished business on like some 50Ks, and I'd love to get a little bit like closer on like the pro trail scene. So I am getting pulled that direction, but I think it's just making me stronger. And I mean, I think I want to qualify for trials as soon as I'm able to, and then spend some time on the trails building like a ton of strength, and then seeing how competitive I could be in 2028. Because I think in 2024, like I got there and just kind of had a fun. It was my victory lap. I was not my physical like. I had a stress fracture. I was like, I'm not going to be competitive, but I'm going to have a blast. And so I think if I could go be competitive, it would be really fun, and just have like teammates with me too. So, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be cool to have a whole crew there, and a few of you guys are trying for it. Uh,
Yeah,
Talking about,
and I'm trying to get another type 1 to just like go for it. Like she's um I think she's running a 311 right now, but she was diagnosed while she was in the Air Force Academy. So, and she kind of reminds me of myself. Like she literally told the doctor like the week she was hospitalized, I'm supposed to run Chicago next week and I'm still gonna do it.
oh no.
So she's kind of got that fire. Young has like some learning to do, but like it would be so cool to get more type 1s out there too.
Yeah, and you know she's got you in her corner, which will help some of those lessons you have to learn maybe the hard way.
For sure.
Where would you say the mindset? You know, I'm just gonna say here, you have like this strong, amazing mindset and willing to go through walls and fire. It sounds like, especially in some of the races you described already on this episode here. Like, where does that come from? I know you said competitive, but
Yeah, it's crazy because both my sister and I have it, and my parents are always like, I don't know how we both like inspired you to do this, and we always, I think now that we're older and more mature, we realize it's because they didn't force us, and we fell into love with sport and like training on our own, and like just see how cool it can be, like to like overcome physically, and get push yourself further when things are going against you, and like just to prove to yourself like you can do it. And I think it translates to work, it translates to relationships. It's like what you put in is what you're going to get out, and it's not always going to be pretty. So like it's the learning lessons and the lows that like really make the highs great. And yeah, like it's crazy how like you can be really resilient and take that to like kind of your day-to-day life, and use it to inspire others and find community. And yeah, so
you have any like sport inspirations, like women in sport, or like athletes or anyone that you're like, oh, this person, you know, when I'm in that cave, I think of this person.
I really should have more, I'll be honest. But I think I just like watching athletics in general because you always see like the underdog story, or just like those that are doing all the work behind the scenes. And as much as social media can be kind of showing not all the story, and like just not the best, but like at least you can see insight to a lot of these athletes now, and like what their day-to-day looks like. But I think when I was in like grade school, I did a book report on Jesse Owens, like the runner, way back when, like first like African American to make the Olympics and all that. And I think like that was where my mind was at, like as a kid, even just like, oh, you can have all these like negatives against you, but like still push through. And just building that mentality, and like changing the negatives into a positive. Like, hey, if I didn't have diabetes, I wouldn't get to see what my blood sugar is every minute of the day. And while that can be like stressful and like data overload, especially as a type A person, at the same time, I'm like, I have an insight to what my body's doing. Sometimes I'm like, why is it stressed? Why isn't it high? But like, I'd rather know than not. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. What would you say to someone, you know, out there maybe listening to this, or that wants to get into the sport and has type 1 diabetes?
Yeah, I think just start small. Little wins. Give yourself grace. I think that's the biggest thing I had to learn, is like not every day is perfect. You can still make the most of a workout, and just remind yourself your body knows effort, and it's constantly going through more effort than a lot of people without diabetes. And so when you're putting a stress on your body like diabetes, you have to adjust your workouts. And so if that means an hour run becomes an hour of just movement, and you have to put in some walk in there, like your body still knows it was active for an hour, and like giving yourself grace, like, hey, it wasn't a perfect hour run, it was an hour walk run. Even like just workouts too, like go off of effort, not pace, and just try to like not look at the watch all the time. Yeah. And track everything and just figure out that balance that works for you and know like one day, like this exact meal, this exact dose of insulin might work, and then the next day it won't. And it's just that's life. And tracking maybe what was the difference? Like, was I more stressed? Was I this? Was I that? And yeah.
Sweet. Dope. Well, if you were listening, take some of those, write some of those down. Sophie, everyone, I want to ask you before we head out here, what's next for you? I know you mentioned some trails, Olympic qualifying, but you got time for that. What do you got coming up?
Yeah, so well, I'm transitioning to a new job right now, but which is going to be awesome, and I'll save the details for another time. But kind of getting a handle and calming down some of the life things, and then I have a couple of fun races coming up in August, and we're actually doing Trans Rockies again with 4 Type 1s. So that's the 120 miles across mountain ranges in Colorado. And so last year we had 2 of us, this year we have 4. So that'll be awesome. And we're going to try to like document a lot of pieces. And the 4 of us all have very different management strategies. So it'll be fun to learn from each other. And then my A race, well, let's call it an A minus race, is Kodiak 50K in October. So that'll be a mountain race out in California. I have some unfinished business in the 50K. I tried to do canyons in April, and while it went okay, I had a tough last couple miles. And so I'm really excited to go back after trails. And then the plan is to take that strength of the 50K and go into a road training block. I'll have a little bit of downtime, but then I am signed up for the marathon project in December and also potentially CAM. So I'll decide between one of those two. So a December marathon, road marathon, and the goal would be to try to get the qualifier, depending on how my body turns around from the 50K. But
When's the 50K, the next one?
October 12th.
October. Okay, and then in 2 months after, go
Yeah.
race.
So
Okay.
that'll kind of be like my first, like, let's get after the aerobic training, and then,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think if there's one thing I've learned about myself is like having the seasons of training. And so fall, winter is going to be like my season. And I think the back-to-back racing I sometimes can get stronger off of. And so not always is the case, but I think for someone like myself, like having the like kind of goals along the way really does help. And it helps me practice the adrenaline rush of diabetes before the big event in December. So yeah.
No, that'll be a good base. I mean, training for a 50K is a whole different beast to say the marathon, but there'll be a lot of time on feet there and then right into let's get some speed in or whatever.
So it'll be like, okay, focus on the climbing and the endurance strength and then roll right into some marathon pace tempos and some track work.
You'll for sure be strong too, going up the hills and elevation and whatnot.
And thank you.
All right, well, thank you, Sophie. Everyone listening, hope this one resonated with you. I mean, it was a lot shared here.
Yeah,
If it,
sorry,
check it
I go
out.
off on my soapbox.
Oh no, it's great. It's great insight, and for those listening that want to have some takeaways, definitely check it out. Share if you like it. Thank you, Sophie, for hopping on. Everyone, this has been the People Run Podcast. See you until next time.
Thank you.